Welcome back to another week on Defense with another brilliant lineup of panelists. I'd like you to join me in welcoming first Mr. Vincent Alexander, an authority on local government and the process, and Mr. Dale Beresford, who is the president of the Local Government Officers Union. Did I get that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining me in studio today.
Thank you very much.
So, many people at home, I think maybe the crowd may be split in two ways. On one hand, we have people that will remember the last local government election. You informed me before we started rolling that it was around 1994 that the last local government election took place. So I was too young to remember that, and I know there are a host of young people in Guyana right now that probably have no clue what local government is about, and much more how they can get involved, because much of the country is anticipating the holding of local government elections next year. So this show is being done fully with you in mind, especially the plus 60% of youth that are supposedly making up Guyana at the moment. I would love for each of you to be able to understand by the end of this program what local government is and how the system operates, and how you can get involved at home, because democracy is about participation. It's about not only keeping your leaders accountable, but for looking for ways to engage with the democratic process and contribute wherever you can. So let's get the ball rolling by throwing it into the court. If I could start with you, Mr. Alexander. So for a number of years, local government has actually been the center of your academic research.
That's quite correct.
Could you start by, let's just say I'm here playing devil's advocate, and just treat me today as if I don't know what local government is. I've never been really exposed to it apart from hearing it in the paper, like many other young people in this position. If you were to explain to someone that wasn't really au fait with what local government is and what it's meant to accomplish, what would you tell that person?
But I would say to the person that I'm quite sure they know every country has government. Mm-hmm. And I'm quite sure they have an idea of what government does. Government regulates relationships between citizens, and they do that through the legal system. Government provides services to citizens. Government work on infrastructure. By services, we talk about health and education. Government provide infrastructure. Government extract taxes as a source of revenue to do the work they're supposed to do. Those are some of the broad things that government do. When you talk about local government, what in fact you're talking about is how some of the things that government would normally do are done in a local area, a part of the country, by a local authority, which may also be referred to as the local government.
Okay.
That means it's a set of people who are carrying out the functions similar to the functions of central government at the local level, specific to provision of services and goods in the local area, the extraction of taxes in the local area, infrastructure in the local area. So much of what is done locally and is peculiar to the local area can be done by a set of people referred to as the local government. That local government, like central government, may be elected, and in addition to being elected, may have an administrative arm that does the actual work on the ground.
So for people that have grown up more accustomed to the NDC, RDC model, these are things I've grown up knowing. What's the difference?
They're all local government.
So we already have local government.
They're all
So
local government.
people may not even be aware, this local government sounds like something in the future we're approaching. But so you're saying these organs are already
They have
local
been there for
government
the
instruments.
longest while. Our RDCs have been there since 1980, and they were preceded by other forms of local government at that wider level, geographic level. The NDCs have been there from the 94
And
elections.
sorry, and to break down the acronyms, so it's Regional
Democratic
Council
and Neighborhood
the
Democratic Council.
Democratic Council. They have been there from 94, as I said. But prior to that, really our local government started shortly after the abolition of slavery.
Wow.
In relation to the NDCs, because really the birth of local government has to do with those villages and the way in which the villages established a leadership that then administered the local affairs. And so that's really where much of our local government came from. We can also look to the origin of Georgetown and the origin of New Amsterdam, which even before the abolition of slavery were established with a sort of leadership to look after those affairs. And that's where our local government really came from.
So that's the origin of the local government. I'm sure people will be amazed to realize it goes back that far as the abolition of slavery. So if the RDC and NDC, Mr. Beresford, are part of the local government, they fall under the umbrella of local government institutions or organizations, what are we having local government elections for? What are they meant to do? Is there anything missing? Is there any component missing from this picture? How does it all fit together? So far, Mr. Vincent's given us central government, and then under this we have local government, and we so far see that NDC and RDC fit into this picture.
And we also have the municipalities,
And the
city
municipalities
and the
as well.
towns are also.
Okay, I want to put it together piece by piece so folks at home get a really good picture.
Well, to add to what Vincent is saying, what important authority on the local government is the Municipal and District Council Act, Chapter 2801, which clearly spells out the roles and responsibilities. The issue, and this was highlighted, I think, sometime a couple of months ago, when the municipality had an issue with the pregnancy
That's
of
correct.
which went back way to the 18th and 19th century rule. But beyond that, the Municipal and District Council Act clearly spells out the roles and responsibilities of those policymakers. As Mr. Vincent said just now, the whole issue of governance, they are governed by policymakers. The younger folks would hear me speaking about the city mothers and fathers.
So what's the
Those are
city?
just the councillors, male and female. But within the councillors, there are also the mayor and deputy mayor who has responsibilities. And over the years, we have seen a clear confusion of the responsibility of those persons. Further than that, within the system, if you are a town, then you run by the municipality, of which is
So Bartica,
Georgetown.
for
Bartica
instance,
will,
which has just
if
been
it's going to be town, there will be a municipality.
So previous to it becoming a township, it wouldn't have
Well,
been
as
a
it is now,
municipality.
they
Yeah, as
have
it is.
It's a neighborhood democratic council.
MDC,
Presently,
NDC,
neighborhood
presently.
council.
But I think there are 5 municipalities in Guyana, and the rest by Neighborhood Democratic Council and Regional Democratic Councils. So those are going to be made up of councillors, and within the councils you have a chairman, a vice chairman, and also you have committees, standing committees, which comes under those NDCs, RDCs, or the municipalities.
Okay, this is getting complicated now. Let me just take a quick recap. So I'm sure I'm following you, and I hope that the people at home are following you as well. And please jump in at any moment and correct me if I'm deviating from the course here. So my understanding from what you said so far, and I hope where you guys are as well, you got central government.
That's right.
And they execute central planning of the economy. They help with things like health, security, and the policy making and the like. And a level under them in terms of hierarchy, when we come to this local government, you got the neighborhood.
Regional democratic councils. After the central, will be regional.
After central would be regional.
Regional.
After regional,
Then you would have the municipality or the Neighborhood Democratic Council.
okay, so it would
depending
be
on the town.
regional, then the towns
Yes.
come in, and then the neighborhood
Yeah.
democratic councils as well. And each of these, the NDC, the RDC, the municipalities, each of these now will have, you say, they may have an admin
Yes.
an admin capacity or arm, and standing committees
Yes.
to take care of different aspects of.
The management of the different organs.
So why is it that I think we should have probably opened the program with something like this, but why is it it's taken so long from the last local government election to this local government? I know there's a lot of debate on it.
Let me try
But
to.
if you were to explain, because I've been trying to have conversations with young people on the issue of local government. Are you going to be interested in running for office or the like? And it's difficult. A lot of the times I get a question back, but why is it taking so long? Maybe we don't need local government.
Let me try to explain that. To say maybe we don't need local government ignores the fact that even as we wait for elections, there is local
There
government.
is local government
and
already.
local government is at work. And for many people who do not even recognize, there are things local government do that will touch their lives on a daily basis, even without elections. Why haven't we had elections? We last had elections in 1994. Local government elections are due every 3 years. And the elections are intended to elect the councillors, the same way in which we elect parliamentarians at the national level, the councillors at the local level.
And this is, just for clarity's sake, this is on the RDC in
The
the
RDC elections correspond with the national elections.
Okay.
So when we talk about the 3-year elections, we're talking about the NDCs and the municipalities.
Because people recall from those that voted this year, you have
RDC
the national,
elections
regional
are held
election
at the same time as the national elections and therefore have been held.
already.
They are not the ones not being held. Elections were last held in 1994 and were due for 1997. 1997 elections were not held because there was some clash between those elections and the national elections, so they were put off. Coming out of the issues of 1997, of the elections, we went into constitutional reform. And so a decision was taken that, look, we will hold on local government elections until the reform was complete, since the reform was intended to also reform the local government system.
I see.
So we held off, went into the reform in 2001, went into reform in 1999, actually, came out of the reform in 2001 with a relatively reworked constitution, which then had new provisions for local government. Those new provisions, however, required subsidiary legislation.
And this is taking us up to 1991.
No, we are now at 2001.
Oh, we're now 2001 after 97 with the constitutional reform.
2001.
2001.
Okay, we're getting the eye from the producer. We must go to a quick break. We're at 2001 in the local government historical timeline. So do join us again in a couple of minutes when Mr. Alexander will continue.
Interested in honoring or paying tribute to a loved one, or just making a loved one feel special? HGP-TV offers you all that and more. Air your birthday greetings, death announcements, and wedding anniversaries on HGP-TV today. HGP-TV offers affordable prices, convenience, and great services. Pick up the phone now and call us on 220-3660 or email us at sales@hgptv.com.
HGP-TV is looking for marketing and sales consultants. Are you confident with excellent presentation skills? Are you able to demonstrate your sales success? Do you want to work in media marketing or sales? If you are, we would like to speak to you. Please contact Ms. Carl Felix at carlfelix@hgptv.com. Please reply immediately.
Welcome back to this week's edition of Off Defense as we speak about all things local government with Mr. Vincent Alexander, expert on local government, and Mr. Dale Beresford, the president of the Local Government Officers Union. Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us in studio. Just before we went to the break, Mr. Alexander, you're giving us a bit of a historical recap on what's gone on with the local government process. You started, and I think we were around 2001. You're talking about the constitutional reform process in 1997, thereabouts. And then, so now we're at 2001. And what happened?
Well, at 2001, coming out of constitutional reform, as I said, there were recommendations in terms of local government per se, and new provisions in the Constitution in relation to local government. It was then determined that we wanted to actualize those provisions.
What sort of provisions, if I can pry?
There are four areas, mainly the whole question of the fiscal approach to local government, how you deal with financing local government, the question of the local government commission, how you deal with staffing and administrative matters, the electoral system, how you deal with that, and the whole question of the other laws you'd have to change to facilitate those three things.
Because everything was interlinked?
Yes, they're interrelated.
Okay.
So a decision was taken that a task force will be established to work on the reforms of local government per se. We now had the broad parameters in the Constitution, but we needed the nuts and bolts.
I see.
And so between the two parties, the PPP and the PNC, by then I think PNCR, they established a local government task force, which I happen to have been one of the co-chairpersons of, to look at the reform. And that task force then launched a national consultation to see what in fact people wanted under these new provisions. That is what dragged out for a considerable period. I wouldn't burden the listenership with all of the turns and curves in the process, but it dragged out for an extended period. I remember myself working for over 8 years without us coming to a conclusion. So
It's
the
phenomenal.
Elections continue to be postponed, held in abeyance, waiting for the new system to emerge, whilst the councils that were in place continued to be in place. And in some instances, the question of the IMCs, interim management committees, were put in place where the councils became depleted because people died, people migrated, people resigned. So you had this holding arrangement.
So the IMCs really came out of a need to have a local government organ that was at very least functional to some extent, but without the elections that were supposed to have taken place. So these were people that were put in there to...
Well, things in Guyana are not that
clear cut. Okay.
The law provides for mechanisms where councils have failed. And those laws were in some ways used to put those IMCs in place. There's a lot of controversy about the IMCs themselves, the way in which they were established, the purpose for which they were really established as opposed to the articulated purpose. But let's not go there. Yes, IMCs were established as a holding arrangement where councils were purportedly not functioning and were depleted of their members.
Well, I mean, we don't have to go there for a very long time, but again, another element of this program is so people try and keep their leaders accountable and understand the mechanisms at play, the forces at play around them. And without making any judgment, I could say that even reading through the newspapers and past articles and the like, it seems there was some controversy where many people thought a lot of the IMCs were put in place for political reasons, for more political control rather than for executing the functions of local government, just in case something like that were to ever happen again and an ordinary citizen were to see and not really understand the context. How do we move away from that? What has happened or what is taking place now that has put us in a better position or in such a good position that we're actually hearing whisperings of local government coming next year. Has the 8-year process?
But it was more than an 8-year process. I left the process after 8 years.
Wow.
And that was somewhere in 2008, 2007, 2008.
Okay.
It has continued for
Far,
another
yes.
7 years. So the process took close to 15 years. Legislation was prepared, but piecemeal in the sense that what was intended initially is that there would be one whole package. So when you go to elections, you will have a new system that you can roll out immediately.
And was the old system that bad?
There are issues with the old system, and let me highlight one of the issues, and one that the citizens have seen in their faces in recent
I'd
time.
appreciate that.
Under the old system, there was supposed to be a local government commission.
And what is
That
what
commission
is that?
was supposed to be responsible for, among other things, regulating senior staff in the municipalities. So they would do appointments, they would do discipline and things like that. That commission, from 1969 to today, was never established.
From
69.
1969?
Yes.
I thought I heard the date wrong.
1969.
1969.
It was never established. What happened in the absence of the commission, the authority of the commission was handed to the office of the Prime Minister, to the Minister of Local Government. And so the Minister of Local Government became the person who was responsible for senior staff.
I had the de facto control now.
Right. Now, it is that control that was used for the issues like the Subu issue and the Pluck issue and all the issues that we have been burdened with in Georgetown in relation to the mayor and town council. Because there wasn't any synergy between the minister and what he was doing and the views and the recommendations of the town council. The town council would make one recommendation and staff, and the minister would knock it down and do his own appointment. Now,
Rather than having the commission that was supposed to be doing that. Who would be constituent of?
so the new system provides for a commission. The commission of the new system is prescribed for this time not in the Municipal and District Councils Act, but in the Constitution itself. The commission, the law regulating that commission has been passed. So that commission should now be established and become responsible for the staffing matters.
Who would the commission be constituent of, however? Private
The law
sector?
provides for the political parties through Parliament to make nominations.
Does civil society have a seat at the table?
Not in terms of making nominations. One of the things I would say is that very often when we start processes, they never go as far as they should go. My own disposition to the commission was that if you're a commission looking at local government, then you needed to identify what were the areas of operation with local government and to have a commission reflecting those areas. My proposal, therefore, was that engineering is a big part of local government, so you need to have the engineers represented. Health is a part of local government, you need to have the health represented. Not education, engineering, health, law is a part of local government, you need to have them represented.
And workers.
Workers, you need to have them represented. So my proposition was that you go to these bodies and ask them to make the nominations. The politicians have not accepted that. What they have done is to provide for a commission where they determine
Which is
its membership.
more of the same in
So
terms of a political
more of the
culture.
same, but different insofar as you will have a commission. We haven't had one from '69. To now, that's some 46 years.
Wow, that is.
More than your lifetime.
Anyone looking at this program, I was not even an idea when this commission was supposed to have been formed. Mr. Beresford, why do you think it takes such an inordinate amount of time to sometimes get these things taken from idea or the paper that they've been written on into something that could be established? Because any one of us could go down to the park right now and pick 10, I mean, not that it would be any proper commission or the like, but just to say it's not a hard thing to call up people and put a group together or compose something that's prescribed by law. Why do you think it takes us such a long time to adjust? And don't we run the danger that by the time we come around to getting action, the provisions that were set for us in 69 or 70, we're already outdated?
I think it's a combination of factors. I think most importantly, it's the will.
The will.
And I think the political will to have this in place. But I would also go further than that. I believe it's a matter of the citizenry, the Guyanese citizenry, who needs to ensure that their political appointees comply with these. When we go to the election, we not only go to election to vote for the next 4 or 5 years. We need to look after our interests. Therefore, it's time that the Georgetown, the municipalities, and even the citizenry of Guyana demand of their appointees, political appointees, to ensure that these are put in place. And this comes about through education, empowerment. Many persons don't know about the Municipal District Counties Act 2801.
Well, I only found out about this act 2 weeks ago. I called to find out some building codes and it was sent to me by accident. But I read the entire document. I didn't even know it existed.
And a lot of persons even don't know, for Georgetown, for instance, living, what are the boundaries of Georgetown? So when you see some of the fiasco playing out at City Hall, then you realize that a lot of persons are a little confused because there's not this educational aspect. So citizens could make an informed decisions relating to their welfare. People believe that, oh, you just pay the taxes. Some people still don't know that. They still don't pay for water rates, which was incorporated into the rates and taxes. All of your markets, for instance, the working of the different markets, your solid waste. All of this is an aspect of the local government and the municipalities.
Okay, well, we are getting the eye from the producer, as we always do. We're going to go to a quick break, but when we come back from the break, I definitely see a few points I'd love to pick up from, especially with regard to people taking an interest, a genuine interest in the local communities, and also the overarching frameworks that will enable or disable the things that they need to ensure the sanctity of those environments. Back in a minute on Defense.
Interested in honoring or paying tribute to a loved one, or just making a loved one feel special? HGPTV offers you all that and more. Air your birthday greetings, death announcements, and wedding anniversaries on HGPTV today. HGPTV offers affordable prices, convenience, and great services. Pick up the phone now and call us on 220-3660 or email us at sales@hgptv.com.
HGPTV is looking for marketing and sales consultants. Are you confident with excellent presentation skills? Are you able to demonstrate your sales success? Do you want to work in media marketing or sales? If you are, we would like to speak to you. Please contact Ms. Carl Felix at carlfelix@hgptv.com. Please reply immediately.
Hello and welcome back to Off Defense. I'm joined today again on Defense by Mr. Vincent Alexander, an expert in all things local government, and Mr. Dale Beresford, the president of the Local Government Officers Union. Thank you once again, gentlemen, for sharing your knowledge with the folks at home on this most important issue. So before we went to a break, you're talking about some of the things that local government is concerned with, like the sewer systems and the collection of solid waste, the management of solid waste, and the like. I'd like you gentlemen to convey or explain how it is that someone at home in their local community, how it is that local government is the principle of it, or it's really set up to enable them to have some amount of agency. How is it an ordinary man? Because often we people on the road, we may see the political class that's different from ourselves. You know, an average man that's not necessarily a part of a political party, but looks around his community, perhaps sees problems with solid waste that he wishes he had the power to address. How would someone like that go about getting involved in representing the people around them and improving, hopefully improving and developing their local communities? How do people get involved in that process?
I think they have to bear in mind in the first instance, and here's where our dysfunctionality comes in, that the councils are elected. So that really, in a local government system, there should be a councillor to whom you could refer if there are problems. Now, unfortunately, our system was a list system that did not necessarily identify a councillor with a particular ward.
What's the list system? How does that work?
I mean, when you go to elect your councillors, rather than going to elect somebody for your area, community, you're going to elect a party. And then the party decides who goes on the council. However, the reform system seeks to partly, I would say, address the matter. Because in the reform electoral system, when you go to elections this time, you will have to cast 2 votes. One vote will be specifically for the council representing your area. So a place like Georgetown that has 30 councillors will be divided into 15 constituencies. And in each of those constituencies, when you go to vote, you actually vote for the person.
The person that you'd like to represent you.
That constituency. And then the second vote is like the old system for your party, and then they'll pick their 15 and put it into the council. So that's one way in which citizens should be able to relate to the council through the councillor. Now, municipal meetings and local authority meetings are also open forum. Citizens are entitled to be notified generally about when the council meets and to go, to sit, to listen to what is being discussed.
Right now, anyone at home, they became aware of, say, a council meeting at City Hall or their local RDC meeting or NDC meeting. They're entitled, you're saying,
they're entitled,
questionably, yes. They're entitled to go.
By law.
And by law,
and
I hope you heard that. By law, you're entitled to go sit, listen to the conversation. What information do they have rights to access?
Well,
the
council meets as Georgetown Municipality, 2nd and 4th Mondays of every month at 2 o'clock in the council chamber. Agenda is sent out, and there are 2 meetings, administrative and other issues. Therefore, you have to, in this case, that citizen cannot just stand up and intervene in a meeting because it's a process. That is where they could approach the councillors, but at the same time, you need to find out what is happening in your particular community, your particular ward.
But how do people become aware of these RDC meetings and the like if they're not informed?
They're supposed to be informed.
That is why Mr. Alexander said it's supposed to be informed publicly.
So
or you can go to your NDC office and get that information.
So if you live in whichever your local RDC or NDC
Bedford, for instance.
You could go down to the local office.
Yes.
By law, this should be so exciting for those of you that are of the mind to participate actively in your democratic process, by law, you're entitled to information pertaining to when the meetings are going on. You're also entitled to be able to sit down and participate. You can't stand up and just blurt out whatever it is. There's an agenda, but I'm sure there's a way to get on the agenda, perhaps through approaching
There is a way in
get
which
your issue.
citizens could get on the agenda, but generally the provision is for them to be able to go and see the issues which have been discussed, to see what positions their councillors are taking on those issues, because then it allows you to make a judgment about your councillor. Come next elections, if you are going to meetings, this councillor is not performing in the meeting, is not consulting in the community, and then obviously you wouldn't vote for that councillor next time around. Also, the town council
Sort of allows for appraisal
Yes,
of the person
yes.
you've. Okay.
The town council should also be publishing its expenditure in a public place. So
So this is major.
citizens should be able to go and see what the budget is, what monies they are collecting, and where they propose to get those monies from, tax and rates, market fees, etc. On the other side, they're supposed to see how the money was expended. That is also supposed to be public information that citizens must be able to access to make a determination of how the councils function.
But it also goes beyond that you will be able to see where some of the infrastructural work that will be carried out within your community, the reports of the various departments of the municipality, like the public health department, like the building inspector, your plans, like the food, meat and food hygiene, all of those reports are tabled at the statutory meetings.
So, because I mean, for instance, hygiene, food and hygiene, that's something I'm very interested in, and I hear a lot of chatter. There are people even that are unsure about which restaurants are safe to eat in. So you mean the results from all of the work that's going on a local government level should be publicly, I mean, we also have a Freedom of Information Act. I don't know how well it's been implemented, but people have a right to access all of this information. And what I want you at home to think about this, like, it's sort of, and tell me again if I'm wrong, right? But it's sort of like, you have a lot to do with your day. It's the same reason we have governments. We have people to centrally execute on our behalf, in our best interests. And similarly, you have a local government, your councillor, that's supposed to be working for you and your community. And going to the meetings is sort of giving you a chance to say, yes, I picked the right person, or maybe I didn't pick the right person. And then further to this, you have a chance to hold them accountable, because you get a chance to see all the money that was collected. And then by comparative analysis, through looking at how it was spent, you can determine for yourself whether the bridge repaired in your community that may have said $15 million, do you think it was worth $15 million when you step in it? Are you feeling that amount of value? Are your public municipal markets sanitary and wholesome for you and your family to go buy your vegetables at the weekend? So I love that you brought it down to everyday things that people can sort of relate to, why it's important. So I would ask myself right now, if I were you, if you've ever done any of those things, have you ever gone to an RDC or NDC meeting? Have you ever requested any of the financial documents concerning these places? And I would suggest that you do, because you know all of us Guyanese, we like to complain. We do it all over. We do it on the corner, the rum shop, in the store. But when it comes to actually taking action to, where we are holding someone accountable, I wish more of us would do it. And
that's why I made the point earlier. Lots of people don't recognize that these local authorities, the things they do impact
On your daily life.
on your daily life, impact on your health and everything else. And you raise the question of which restaurant to go to. Now, restaurants are obligated to have in a public place their certificate.
I can't tell you how many of those I've
So that you
ever
don't have
seen.
to make an effort to find that out, you should be able to go into a restaurant and head
And
on.
permanently displayed as by law.
By law.
But beyond that, each persons who are preparing food within the restaurant ought to have a valid food handler's certificate, which is issued by the municipality.
And you can request to see
And
it.
you can request.
And you can ask to see it
yes,
as well.
even those roadside vendors. It should be on them at all times.
You mean?
Yes.
If
All
people
roadside
sense
vendors who are
handling
selling
food.
foods and preparing foods, even cold storage. All of these are done by the meat and food inspectors of the food hygiene department. That's why you see from time to time they would do visits to the markets and other places and seize foods, expired food in collaboration with the food and drugs department. But with coming back to what we spoke about, the citizens also need to look at the quality of the councillors. I think most persons are turned off by the circus, let me call it that goes on at council meetings. That is not a place for that. Council meetings should be carried on in a professional and business-like manner.
Yeah, we've become accustomed to very sensationalized.
You bring the persons that you say, run this, slap down, cuss out, it is not for that. And some of our councillors go to meetings and they do not utter a word
So
in
who are-
years
who
of
are they
meetings.
representing then?
But those councillors receive a stipend every month. And that stipend is to aid in their transportation, attending meetings and so forth. But they do not even go back to their constituents or ward or members to be able to represent them. Therefore, it's important that we as citizens demand more of our councillors, demand more of our policymakers.
I hope you guys at home, we're going to a quick break, but I hope you're keenly listening to all of this information. And as a nation, we start last week, I asked the question, what is wrong with us? And I meant it, we were having a discussion with Anil Singh and Gomin Camacho, but I meant it in the sense of the fact we tend to politicize a whole host of issues. And even to look at someone is to judge and say which party they're from or which type of politics they may have. But regardless of which political party you support or who you would like to be your leader, whoever ends up as your leader, I hope you're show by show getting this strong impression that you have a duty ultimately to hold them accountable, because it's in your interest that they have been entrusted with our money, our taxes, the keys to the car, as it were. We'll be back in a minute. Really, in the break, have a think about how much you are already participating, and is there any more space left in your life to participate more? Because from the sound of it, there's some people waiting on you to sit down in a council meeting and hold them to account. Back in a second.
Interested in honoring or paying tribute to a loved one, or just making a loved one feel special? HGPTV offers you all that and more. Air your birthday greetings, death announcements, and wedding anniversaries on HGPTV today. HGPTV offers affordable prices, convenience, and great services. Pick up the phone now and call us on 220-3660 or email us at sales@hgptv.com.
HGPTV is looking for marketing and sales consultants. Are you confident with excellent presentation skills? Are you able to demonstrate your sales success? Do you want to work in media marketing or sales? If you are, we would like to speak to you. Please contact Ms. Carl Felix at carlfelix@hgptv.com. Please reply immediately.
Welcome back to the wrap-up session of On Defense this week, where we've been talking about all things local government. I'd like to thank Mr. Vincent Alexander, expert on local government affairs, and Mr. Dale Beresford. Beresford. I've been pronouncing your name incorrectly all program. I'm so sorry. Mr. Dale Beresford, president of the Local Government Officers Union. Thank you again, gentlemen. Now, before we went to the break, we were talking a bit about accountability, the fact that ordinary citizens have not only the right to request financial income, but also expenditure. You could go sit down in the meetings and find out what's going on that's affecting you in your community. And you spoke about the food handler certificates and the fact that people are supposed to have these things. And before the show, I'd raised with you, gentlemen, the issue of enforcement. And I guess it can expand to implementation. Whereby in Guyana, we have legislation that covers a whole host of different topics. But enforcement and implementation seems to be where we consistently fall short as a nation. And for example, so while I was listening to you talk about the food and the restaurant and public health and these things, I started thinking about what do we do when the system is broken, or when it has been broken for so long, it's no longer flowing smoothly. We're no longer in the position where public health inspectors are going out to restaurants and simply shutting them down because they have bad hygiene or the like. I don't know if anyone doesn't know, but there are kickbacks and all sorts going around the place. Money passes hands to things to keep silent. There are restaurants around town. I know Seco used to be in the papers a lot for it, where the grease fat from their grease trap and stuff is leaking out into the sewer. So while I know there are provisions that is supposed to prevent some of these infractions, they're still going on and people are still at risk. Their public health is still at risk. Our markets are still very unsanitary places. How do we shore up this infrastructure? How do we take things in the right direction? Now that, it's an amazing feat of patience to wait 8 years for some of this legislation and like to be passed. But now we're getting even closer to the mountaintop, as it were. How do we make that final push and really start addressing some of these things that haven't really been flowing as they should have?
I would say that the question you raised is not peculiar to the local government. It's a national problem. And that what is required of the country is the rebirth of an ethos in terms of what are our values and how we conduct business. A complete rebirth of ethos. And that can only start with the leadership at the very top demonstrating their own commitment to a new ethos, and with them sharing that ethos and working towards the realization of it nationally. We have to have a campaign for a change in ethos that must first of all be demonstrated from the very top of the system. Our ethos is completely dysfunctional.
And be very specific. What is ethos? Let's just be.
Ethos means what are the values that informs our behavior. Are we ethical or unethical? Are we honest or dishonest? Do we accept dishonesty? Do we have a country where a minister can say to the nation, I break the law and I don't care? That's an ethos question. If the minister says, I break the law and I don't care, so who else should care? Our ethos presently in this country is individualism. Every man for himself and God for everybody. Now we need to get to an ethos where people take responsibility for what they do and the way in which what they do affects the general good in the society. So I think that's a major project we have to have. Without that project, we ain't going nowhere. But having said that, In places like the city council, there are other deficiencies. Our city council, whether we think they're corrupt or they're not corrupt, is tremendously under-resourced. And I always use a very, very simple example of that. Where I live, there's a reserve outside of my yard and a bit of grass in my yard. I pay $4,000 a month.
$1,000 every week.
$48,000 a year to maintain those lands. My taxing rates is $23,000. That's what I pay. But the city council is supposed to be doing what I do for $48,000 a year. Plus, meaning roads and lights and all that. The city council simply does not have the resources to do the job. Even if they stop stealing, they would not have the resources to do the job that
The amount of work is surpassed by
It's
the
surpassed,
capital.
but beyond that, the system within the municipalities, a system we've been working with since the 1980s. Just look at the tax system. Okay, let's look. We spoke about the food and hygiene department. That department is severely understaffed, and this could go right throughout the municipality. I'm sure many other NDCs. So kudos should be going out to those employees who are working way beyond with the limited resources available. And in terms of the legal aspect, they've been cause for a municipal court. And one example, the fines for littering is $10,000. That was recently implemented.
Who gets the money?
But the money goes nothing goes to the city council.
The money does not go to the city
Yeah, it
council.
doesn't. So we need to look at those things. You spoke about the grease traps and those things. Those inspectors do inspect and issue violations. But when it goes to the court, the process is probably so long. Absence of refuse receptacle, failure to keep your yard free from weeds and overgrowths,
All those offenses.
stagnant drains. All of these are
But
things that
again,
you
gentlemen,
Therefore, as we said, we need from the level of the leadership to have a concerted effort to ensure that there are no two laws for persons. And we know in Guyana the whole story of you get locked up, you make a phone call, and you're released. Now, what does that do to the morale of those employees? Some persons have been suspended or even dismissed because they had the courage to do their job. We need to start now. We need to ensure that even if the minister calls, or that minister should not even call, as Vincent said, that minister should have the decency, the respect to say, well, you did this, you owe what is there.
Indeed.
Because in Guyana, wrong is right. And you have the devil's job to convince somebody that they're wrong.
And
So-
you're not especially supported by the wider,
Exactly.
the architecture that's
So
supposed
we need to
support you.
understand that within the municipality, the resources, even the public health inspectors. When I was a public health inspector, we had an inspector for every single ward.
Wow.
That was
I'm
over
sure that's
25
not the
years
case
ago.
now.
There are about 7 inspectors for the entire city of Georgetown.
So that's just too much work.
That's just
You
too much
cannot-
work.
You cannot do your work effectively.
The same goes for the building inspectorate. So we have to look at the system and ensure that we take it back to where, not only where it is, but where we want. But what is happening in the council is continually be burdened with more issues. Like for instance, green jobs, green economy. How does it affect the country? How does it affect the city of Georgetown?
People even understand what a green job is?
And
It's
that-
not selling greens.
But that is part of our Decent Work Country program that came out from National Development Strategies. All of these are empowerment. All of these are ensuring that persons prepare, and this is through education and training, to prepare your citizen for the future. The question is, are we doing a good job?
Beautiful. We're getting some of the I will ask you, gentlemen, if there's anything in the course, because you're experts in this local government thing. I have a longing that people would be able to connect with some of the information, and it spurs some of you at home to. I would be so happy if, as an outcome or an output, if we were to do some monitoring and evaluation on this show, that an impact or an output of this would be some of you actually get interested and say, you know what if I went down to that RDC meeting? I wasn't going to do anything on Wednesday night or on the 4th of the month. Anyway, and these guys, just one meeting, you might be able to find out something about the public health in your area, how much money is being expended on something else. And it's been proven time and time again by various studies, when the very act of observing someone makes them less likely to engage in corrupt activity. When we feel people are watching us, there's someone gonna come down on us and say, hi, we're much less likely to get involved in these things. So we could actually be helping our politicians and people in our society. And you can be contributing to the brighter Guyana you dream about. You could be contributing to putting the Guyana you complain about firmly in the past. But we can only do this together. And what I've really loved that's come out from the conversation today, that your involvement on a personal level, we must stop waiting on people to come and save us and pull us out of our problems. Each of us has a personal commitment that we can make to the process of development in our own communities and nationally. So I hope people at home follow up on this. Where can folks get more information on the local government process, and especially those that haven't studied it for as long as you guys have? Where can you get more information on this? And what else, as we're in the wrap-up segment, any final comments you have and things that maybe I've missed out or you wish I had touched on for longer? The floor is open.
In terms of more information, I think there are some websites that people could visit. I think that the Ministry of Local Government has a website that one could visit, and there should be some information available. One could start from simply seeing what the Constitution provides for. One could see,
and you can definitely get the Constitution online. We'll post I have a copy, so I'll post it to the Off Defense page on Facebook. You can get that.
The Municipal District Councils Act, the Local Government Act, they're all available. There are a number of brochures that are being prepared by the council itself in the case of Georgetown that one could access. So there's some source of information. But I think the more critical issue here is the level of citizens' consciousness, which is not unrelated to information, but the level of their consciousness, because I think the change will only occur if the citizens make their councillors accountable. And so the first stage of that will have to be the elections itself. That citizens should, particularly for the constituency councillor, vote for someone who they think can do the job, not for a friend, and not because somebody said, well, that's one of we. They should seriously look at the candidates. Your vote is secret, and vote for the person you think can do the job. And don't leave it there. You can then monitor that person to make sure the person is doing the job. Call on the person, call out, shout out the person during the 3 years. Get them to do the work. You have a chance down the road to replace that person if the person is not working. And I think that's what's really required at this time. Citizens' consciousness, citizens' involvement. We need that ethos which says, it's not about friends, it's not just about me, it's about creating a society that I will benefit from without having to be selfish, because the society is conducive to human growth and human development.
Powerful, powerful. Mr. Beresford?
Yeah, I would just like to add to Mrs. Vincent said, my concern is the percentage of young persons within our population who will be first-time voters and the education process. How do we reach those young persons? What organization, what strategies do we have between now and when local government is held to be able to inform those persons? Because we're speaking about over 60%. And there are institutions where we need to tap into to have programs, and even if within the workplace, the trade union is a perfect vehicle to be able to carry these messages through the training programs. And beyond that, the other NGOs, you can have to let them understand the role that they play. Because the vote today will be the change for tomorrow. And young persons, you need to be able to stand up. And as the Jamaicans say, not participate, but fulticipate.
Fulticipate. I love that.
So we need to encourage, and I believe even within, we should ask ourselves, are we comfortable with the age limit, for instance, of those persons on the NDC's council? Why is it that you can't have 1/3 of young persons as councillors?
What's the age limit currently?
There's no age limit.
I think it's referring to the age range.
Oh, the age range.
Mostly
right.
elderly people.
Yeah.
Yeah. So why can't there be a 25-year or 20-year-old engineer on the board who, with his expertise and his technical knowledge, to be able to do that? Young people need to stand up, and stand up now.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, I don't know if we could wrap up on more powerful words. That's a lot of food for thought. So in closing, I hope everyone at home gets into the spirit of fulticipation, as the Jamaicans would call it, and I'll be using that word so much from now on. I hope that you take away from this what Mr. Alexander's also said about the ethos, changing how we do business in Guyana. We cannot continue to be, not that we are laughing stock in the Caribbean, but we cannot continue to be the name on the tips of people's tongues when they speak about corruption, poor service, and broken infrastructure and the like. We have a chance to hold our leaders accountable. And what I'm really getting from you gentlemen is that everybody is a manager. We are all managers, but not all of us have been taking our jobs seriously. So I wish you the most fulticipation possible, and I hope you don't let the ball drop. Next year, the local government is coming up. No doubt we will have a follow-up discussion on this because it's that important. Get out there, participate, and make Guyana better, because that's something we're only going to be doing if we're doing it together. Have a good day.